Welcome, good morning. Welcome to Mobile Metron, coming to you live from the Metron Live studio on Sunday, August the 23rd. August is nearly over, summer is nearly over. Hard to believe. What's that? I know. I know. I'm going to stop saying I can't believe how time, I think it's making time go fast the more I say it, so I'm just going to shut up about it.
It's my fault.
Yeah, see, that's what I said earlier this week. It's just easier when you just assume everything's your fault. Like, it takes you out of defense mode. Like, yep, swift passage of time. That was me. Anyway, glad you're all here, and those of you who are logged on at home, welcome, welcome, welcome. Spirit of God, we are grateful that we're always in your presence. Where can we go from your presence? On days like today, something different happens. It's a synergy that's created where two or more are gathered together in your name. So we believe that on this particular day, this day is unique. It looks like other Sundays, but it's not. This is the day. Today's a different day. Today has not happened before, at least not in this dimension. So we tap into the nowness of what is happening and what is about to happen. We thank you for it. We thank you for it. Amen. Before I officially get started, let me remind you that Meditation Weekend number 30 is coming up October. Be here before you know it, I promise. When I plan these things, they seem so far out in the future, and then next thing I know, I'm driving there. But anyway, we're going to beautiful Blairsville, and it's always gorgeous that time of year. So this is going to be a really good one. And if you're interested in going, scroll up to my cover photo on my Facebook page, and the information is there in the copy. All right. If we're ready for the podcast, we speak into this atmosphere and say, "Let there be light." Metron Live studio people, would you please welcome the podcast people? As always, thank you to Charles McFall, the rock god of podcasting. We appreciate it. All right, we're in a series. What is today? Part 3. And I'm talking about the healing word, how that everything is energy and we're all connected. Where I want to take it today and next Sunday is we all speak a healing word to each other. He sent his word and healed them. Yes, that's important. I would also like to tell you that the most significant healing word you're ever going to hear is going to come from yourself. So you have to learn. Yes, the interaction you have with people is important. 2 are better than 1, absolutely. But there's nothing like the internal monologue. That's what's creating your reality, is what you're saying to yourself on a continuum. So I want to sort of turn the corner today and next Sunday about the healing word that we speak to ourselves, okay? So I want to share something with you. This is kind of some territory I've covered before, but it's important to get this said within this context. So just bear with me covering a little previous territory. Specifically in the area of changing the familiar. Let me give you this disclaimer. My idea of the devil and demons has definitely evolved from the way I was raised to believe. I don't think there's a disembodied spirit out there that's I know Peter said Satan roams about as a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. I think that's metaphorical. I don't think there's actually this entity. I don't think there are disembodied spirits that are going to possess you. And, like people that always get scared at demon possession movies. But when I'm looking at them, I'm like, that's not real. That's not the way that happens. It's like that's terrible special effects. Even back in the day when I was young and went to see The Exorcist and everybody was losing their minds, I'm like, I don't know. It looks really stupid to me the way that's clearly not her head turning all the way around. But for people that are unfamiliar with that, I understand that's really scary to them. Now, if it's a scary movie about a crazy man in your house at night, now that's scary because well, that's within the realm of possibility. But that being said, in the Gospels, when Jesus would either cast out demons or say something about demons, I think there's a truth to what he was saying that, I mean, I believe in the words in red. I believe in the gospel. I believe in listening to what Jesus said. But even before Jesus came along, even in the Old Testament, evil spirits, does anybody know what they were called? They were called familiar spirits, which is such an unusual choice of words. Even like a medium was called a familiar. Like, let's go find a familiar who can perform a seance. And this is where I'm going with this today, so I'm just going to expect you to hop on board and think outside the box with me. I'm sure at this point, anybody listening to me is probably already, you threw the box away a long time ago. You've been coloring outside the lines. You don't even have a coloring book anymore. You're just running around with a crayon. It is very interesting that the word familiar and family come from the same root. So this is what I want to present to you. I think there are demons. I don't think they're what we used to think they were. I think demons are like wrong thoughts that you hold on to that came from things that were familiar to you, maybe from your family, not exclusively, but you know, anybody that survived growing up in family, it did a little something to you. Anybody says my family was dysfunctional, like, oh yeah, well, welcome to family life. Everybody, like, well, you think you're special? Everybody just has different levels of dysfunction or different comfort zones with discussing it. But no, like the illusion of the perfect family, that has never existed. Put your perfect family idea out there with leprechauns and unicorns and the tooth fairy. I mean, I hate to tell you, those things aren't real. But when we talk about I'm dealing with my demons, you're not talking about The Exorcist. You're talking about old ways of thinking that have come from places of familiarity that need to change. That's one of the most profound things I learned from Joe Dispenza. He talks so much about, it's not like I listen to him. I actually refer to him more than actually listen to him. I don't listen to that many people. All of you who send me stuff to listen to during the week, I'm giving you lots of thumbs up, and I'm not listening to it. I wish I could tell you I was, but I'm not. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I just listen to the Holy Spirit. And if I do listen to somebody, I will always credit them. Like, oh, I heard so-and-so say this week. But one thing he did say that it just resonated with me down to my toes. He said that sometimes you get addicted to the hormones of stress. You get addicted to survival mode. You've been in it so long that you don't know how not to be that way. When the Lord turned the captivity of Zion, we were as them that dreamed. There's a lot of controversy about why some slaves stayed on plantations after slavery was abolished. They didn't have an alternative. It certainly wasn't they liked slavery. It was like, well, what's my alternative? To go into the next town and get lynched? I mean, at least here people know who I am. It's not best case scenario. And don't misunderstand me. I'm not making a case for slavery. I'm saying, yeah, I can understand why people cling to what's familiar. I've told you this story before, but at Disney they have that Animal Kingdom, and in their opening thing they brought in all these animals that had been incarcerated in cages for years, and they had a ceremony where they opened all the cages and expected the animals to run out into this habitat. Not one of them came out of their cage. They had been so institutionalized. And I remember even hearing a story years ago about there was in the Moscow Zoo, there was a bear that lived in a 9x9 cage, and he paced back and forth his entire life. So when they upgraded the zoo and made it a natural habitat, they brought this bear, they took him out of his cage, and they're thinking he's going to just love running around free, and he got out and still paced back 9x9, because now the cage was in his brain. It didn't matter. That's why, I mean, there's so many animal metaphors. Like, I remember hearing a circus guy talk about when they had elephants in the circus, that he was asking one of the trainers. He said, these elephants are tied to these stakes that are so, like, couldn't they just pull these stakes up out of the ground and move? And the guy said, they've been tethered to these since they were little and couldn't do it, and now they don't even challenge it. Like, well, I obviously can't. So there's, and then you remember Shawshank Redemption, when James Whitmore's character gets out, and he's been in prison his whole life, and he ends up committing suicide because he doesn't know how. I mean, for decades, somebody's told him when to go to the bathroom and when to eat and whatever. And so there's so many metaphors about familiarity. And when Dispenza was talking about that, he said, some people don't know how to think differently because they don't feel like them. Like, if I'm not worried, if I'm not frantic, it feels unfamiliar. Now, some familiarity is good. When we talk about, like, I'm on several of these, I've liked on several of these websites that are like the good old days kind of stuff, and they'll share like cartoons from the 60s or something. There's, if it's people from your age group, there's a certain camaraderie that you feel, oh yeah, and like I'm on several Atlanta pages. People say, hey, do you remember the so-and-so restaurant? And so, yes, there's a comfort level of talking about, oh yeah, I remember that, and that was fun, whatever. May I also say, I don't want to go back and live there. Yesterday when I was using GPS, and it was getting me to my place without me feeling like I was going crazy, I thought, you know what, these are the good old days. I remember those days of trying to look at a map and looking at it upside down and trying to fold the map back up, and I'm the way my brain works. If I stop and ask for directions, after you've told me the third thing, I've already glazed over. Like no, I'm not retaining any of this. So anytime I use GPS, I'm like, I bless the person who invented this. Thank you. So some things that are familiar are good. The things that are familiar that hold you in the past, however, need to be challenged. And many times, not all the time, but many times those things are your demons, if you will. They're old, obsolete survival mechanisms of dealing with situations that are irrelevant now and don't even serve you, but they're keeping you from moving. Now, to make my point about what Jesus said, like in one place, Jesus says, when a demon goes out of a man, he roams around in dry places. And again, he's speaking metaphorically. He roams around in dry places, and then he decides that he wants to go back to his home. I'm not making this up. Jesus said this. But he brings 7 more demons worse than him. What he's saying is, if you've made progress and then you go backwards, many times you fall back even further than you were before. But the point is, he says the demon wants familiarity. The demon wants to go back to what feels familiar. So this is what my line of thinking is today. God is this force that's moving us. The Spirit is vibrating over the face of the water. In Him we live and move and have our being. The wind blows where it wills. Anytime you talk about the Holy Spirit, it's about movement, it's wind blowing, it's water, it's movement, it's progression, it's going from glory to glory. What feels demonic to me is anything that resists that change. Another story is the man at Gadara who, I always laugh at this every time I tell this story. I remember I guess my kids had heard me teach about this one time, and when they were real little, they were in the basement and they were screaming they were making enough noise that I called them down. What are y'all doing? Whatever you're doing, stop it. And I think it was Christina said, we're playing Mad Mad of Gadara. I was like, what? And I guess they had heard me talk about the man that got the demons cast out of him. So they were playing exorcism and screaming. I'm like, okay, well, that's a new one, but all right. But in that story, the demons speak out of the man and says, my name is Legion, for we are many. And then it says, please don't send us out of this country. And so Jesus sends which again I believe is allegorical, Jesus sends them into the pigs. And what's interesting is you got, in one of the demon stories, it wants to go back home. In another one of the demon stories, it doesn't want to leave the country. So, like, look, when we get older, change becomes more difficult. I will grant you that. You know, there is such a thing as, you don't want to call it being set in your ways, but this is the way we do things. Please don't interrupt, don't interrupt the flow. However, sometimes the flow needs to be interrupted. And sometimes you've done a thing a certain way, or thought a thing a certain way, or talked about a thing a certain way, and it does need to be challenged, because it's not that it's killing you necessarily, it's just keeping you from moving forward. Now, that being said, another story, this is not about demons, but one of my favorite stories is Jesus approaching the pool of Bethesda, which there was an urban legend that an angel would come and trouble the water, and so paraplegics and people on stretchers and stuff would park. It was like an apparition site, and they would put their cots and their stretchers all around this pool, waiting for this fluke to happen when an angel would come and trouble the water. That's when your window of opportunity was to get in the water and get healed. So one day Jesus approaches a man who was there, and he says, do you want to be well? And the man said, well, I've been paralyzed for 38 years. And he said, every time the angel comes and he said, I've been here waiting to be healed. Every time the angel comes and troubles the water, I don't have anybody to help me get in the water, and somebody who has use of their limbs beats me to it every time. And from someone who is apt to retell stories, and I don't apologize for it, I am aware that it's good to tell your stories if they're propelling you forward. If your stories are keeping you locked into a certain mindset, yes, they do need to be challenged. They do need to be repented of. Repentance is the Greek word metaneo, change your life by changing your mind, which means sometimes you have to change your stories, which means sometimes you have to rewrite your stories and edit them and tell what happened, but also tell it without you being the victim in the story, okay? Again, this is all ground I've covered before, but I need to lay this foundation to say what I'm going to say next. So what Jesus says to this, 38 years, what was 38 years ago? That was like back in the 80s, the mid-80s. So you think about everything that's happened to you since the mid-80s. How different you look. You're probably in a different body than you were in, and your hair is different. Some of you had hair in the mid-80s. And sometimes you forget what you look like. You'll look back at something like, oh man, I can't believe I ever wore that. Then again, there's some things, like people make fun of like the way the Brady Bunch dressed. See, I look at it and I'm like, well, that looks cool to me. I mean, that's what I wore that because in my mind, my, inner teenager is like, I think Greg's pants look really good. I wish I had those pants. I did have those pants. But so there are some things that you do move on from. There's other things you're like, well, yeah, that's the way I looked back then. And I was still cute. But you think about how many times that man has probably told that story in 38 years. And Jesus doesn't even respond to his story. Jesus says, well, take up your bed and walk. And I did a teaching about this when we were in the theater, about how the fact that he took his bed with him, to me, is symbolic of you still keep your story. You still remember that you were on that bed. It's just that now you're changing the energy on it, which I said all that to say this. change the energy. That's why I wanted to tell you today, thanks for coming, drive safely. I mean, I went the long way around. I circled that airport a few times before I landed that plane. But that's the thing I want to tell you today about the healing word. Because you might be speaking a word to yourself that's keeping you from optimum. And that's what needs to be challenged. What story are you telling yourself? Because you're creating your reality out of that story every day of your life. Now, having said that, let me read some things I found that I think is important. Asking, why is this happening to me, is a natural human reaction to pain, stress, or sudden life changes. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is when you're caught in a pattern and you keep saying, why is this happening to me, you keep sending energy out to that thing and it just keeps galvanizing it. You have to change the way you're framing it in your mind. Instead of, why is this happening to me, if you start saying, what can I learn from this? Or what can I create differently? Then you can not be in denial of the truth of it, but also you don't keep yourself stuck in it. I don't know how this works, and don't try to explain it to me because I will just find it boring. All I know is I have satellite radio, Sirius radio, and I listen to it always when I'm in the car. And I've got all my favorite channels in there. And there's a channel for anything that you like. There's some channel that's that thing. What's amazing to me, because I don't understand how this works, but that means there's a satellite out in outer space somewhere that's sending some kind of signal or energy to my radio. And the reason I know it's true is if I go under a bridge or if I'm in a parking deck, my radio cuts off. And every time that happens, I'm amazed. I'm like, how is it possible? And again, don't explain. If you're a science nerd, keep it. I'm thinking I don't want to know about it intellectually. I want to understand it spiritually. It means something out there very, very far away is sending energy into my car. And there are obstructions that stop that flow. I mean, sometimes when I think about it, I'm looking around and think everybody driving around here is probably listening to satellite radio. So that means there's some kind of beams of something everywhere. It's amazing we're not all radioactive. If there's that much energy flow that can be cut off, I can go under a concrete bridge and it stops. So it's coming from somewhere, and that's kind of what I'm seeing with the events of your life. If you keep saying the same thing about a familiar thing, you keep sending energy to that thing, and it keeps sending energy to you, and it creates a familiar spirit. You hear what I'm saying? It doesn't mean you've got a demon in the old school sense. It means you've got a stronghold that needs to be purged because you've energized that thing over and over and over again. You've told your Pool of Bethesda story for 38 years, and it's got you locked in. Okay? Y'all feel me? All right. It's good, isn't it? Maybe my best teaching ever. I don't know. Mental health experts note that this feeling often comes from the brain trying to find meaning in chaos or getting stuck in patterns where past wounds and hard times repeat. Again, this is what feels familiar. Why do, I mean, men do it too, but especially some women keep going, leaving one abusive relationship and getting back in another. And you think, why would you keep doing that? Because she's in a pattern. It's like that's, a lot of those people think, well, this is all I deserve, this is all I'm ever going to get. Because you've thought about that thing. And when you keep saying, why did they say that to me? Or why did they do that to me? You keep energizing that thing, and it keeps energizing you. And it's just making it stronger and stronger and stronger, and digging those grooves deeper into your thought processes. But this right here, this makes sense to me. It's like you're not a bad person for doing it. It's like that's how you learn survival. If you've ever rescued an animal that's been abused, sometimes they don't get out. I know Christina, she had a dog years ago, and It was a rescue. And I don't know what happened to this dog, but it was the scaredest dog. I mean, if you just said, hey baby, she would run, and her name was Grace. She'd run and hide under a bed, and it was frustrating because you're like, I'm not threatening you. And then one night, I don't know what was different. Christina they were at our house in Covington, and the dog was there, and I finally just stopped talking to it because every time you talk to it, it'd freak out. And she sort of moseyed in there and came up to me, and I'm like, I don't want to scare her. And she put her head on my knee, and I petted her, and I don't know how we crossed that bridge. And Christina's had so many animals over the years, I don't even remember what happened to her long range. I just remember I would look at that dog because she's in a very affirming environment now, but man, some memory of her has made her terrified of human beings. And no matter how much you say, sweetie, we're not the people who did whatever they did to you, she can't see it. And it's very difficult for people to rethink old patterns. You know, it's one thing with a dog, but sometimes you meet somebody that they're stuck in old relationships, and you want to say, like, I'm not your ex-husband, I'm not your ex-wife, I'm not your ex-pastor, but that's how they see it, and they can't see the now. You can't make them see it, which is where I'm going to talk about in just a minute, but let me finish this. Mental health experts note that this feeling often comes from the brain trying to find meaning in chaos or getting stuck in patterns where past wounds and hard times repeat. Common reasons behind the feeling, first of all, is brain wiring. The mind actually focuses more on bad events than good ones to keep you safe, which can make your current struggle feel massive and heavy. Now that makes sense to me. Like when somebody says, I'm not afraid of anything. Well, if you see a rattlesnake a few inches from you, you should be afraid of that. I mean, that lack of fear could kill you. So there's some things, like if the house is on fire, you should run out of the house. You know, it's not going to serve you to go, I ain't scared of no fire. Well, that's going to be famous last word. You know, that's what they say. What's a redneck's last words? Hey, watch this. You know. But so yeah, there's a certain amount of fear that's normal and healthy. Some things should be, like if you're not afraid of anything, you might be a sociopath. But I think this is interesting because your brain learns survival mode, so you go back to remembering, like, oh, this happened before and it hurt. And sometimes you do need to remember that. Right. There are some things that have happened to you. Yeah, you should remember that. That's why when somebody says forgiving is forgetting, I don't think so necessarily. Because there's some things that people have done to you that you shouldn't forget that, because otherwise you'll repeat the same thing. You could say, I forgive you, baby, but I can't let you ever do that to me again, because that, you know, and I know you're capable of that. So I forgive you, go with God, but what was it? Tupac Shakur said, he said, I forgive you, I'm not mad at you, because now it's different now that somebody shot and killed him. It has kind of a different impact now. But he says, and I don't mean to make light of that, but he said, I still want you to eat, just not at my table. That's right. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. So there's some things that you remember because you should remember. So when somebody says, you know, if you haven't forgotten, you haven't forgiven, I'm like, well, what are you supposed to get, a lobotomy or have amnesia? Like, how are you supposed to remember that? Second reason is familiar pain, familiar spirits, familiar pain. The nervous system sometimes pulls you toward familiar, difficult situations because your past taught your body how to survive them. So it's not, you're not a bad person for doing it. It's a defense mechanism, something in your memory banks that says you need to remember that this happened to you before. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a surgical or like a doctor thing or a surgical procedure that you weren't dreading so bad, but then once you had it, you're like, I'll never do that again. I remember years ago I had LASIK surgery. And so I didn't wear glasses for about 10 years. And then after I had my cataracts taken out, I got these industrial strength lenses where I have X-ray vision now. But I remember when I was and the guy that did it, he was great at it. But I was laying on the table and he was doing the thing and he says, now everything's going to go totally black for a few seconds. I was like, wait, what? He said, it's just for a few seconds. I said, nobody told me that. And he said, yeah, it's going to go black. And I said, I don't want to do this. He said, I've done 30,000 of these. I said, I don't doubt you. I'm having this conversation while I'm laying down. I said, I don't doubt your ability. I just didn't know I was going to go temporarily blind. I would like to end this. He said, you can't. You're in it now. So we got through it, and sure enough, everything went black, and then it came back. I mean, I can see y'all. But now if somebody said, would you like to have LASIK? I'd be like, oh, hell no. Because that little moment where they say everything's going to go black, that made me a little nervous. Especially because they didn't prepare me for it. Right. If I'd had a little time to think about it and talk to some people who would have said, oh yeah, they do that, it's just a few seconds. But it was kind of sprung on me in a very vulnerable moment. And it was a little emotionally disorienting. Yeah. I was glad to get my sight back, but just for a few minutes I was like, okay, you know, if I'd had a heart attack while he was doing this, it kind of defeated the purpose of having my eyes done. So sometimes you go through something and you're like, as God is my witness, I won't do that again. I didn't know that was going to be that bad. I'm actually, and I don't want to snare myself with my words, but I got enough going on here in this shoulder that I have to honestly think, before you get any older, you may have to do what they did on this one, because the doctor told me, he said, in a few years, you're probably going to have to do it on this one too. So I've done everything I know, and some nights it doesn't hurt, and I'm like, I'm never going to. And then there was a couple of nights this week that I'm like, I'm going to have to call Dr. Littleton this week. But there's a part of me that says, I don't want to go through 6 weeks in a sling, and it hurt, and I don't want to. I remember coming out of recovery and I was nauseous and I don't want to do that. I'm not saying I will, I'm not saying I won't. I'm just saying, what else y'all got? Because I already did it. And I'm glad I did it. Like, that's great. I could do that. That doesn't hurt. Anyway, you get my point. Third thing is random hardship. Much of life involves unpredictable pain that does not have a clear reason or personal meaning. That's why there's some things that happen to you that you don't have any point of reference. Like, I've never been through this before. I don't know what to do. We had Jared and Jamie had us over for dinner last night, and it was great. She looks amazing. I didn't take any pictures because she's days away from delivery. I'm not putting her on the spot. But I couldn't believe, Jamie, I can't believe how good you look. I thought, if I saw her, I would think she's maybe 5 months pregnant. She's just days away from going into labor. But she's in real good shape, and she's a park ranger, and she's a hiker and everything. I think that's really served her well. So she's all baby, and it was great. We had a great time. But I was asking Jared, I said, you're going to be in the delivery room? He said, oh, yeah. And I thought, okay, there's nothing I can say to prepare you for it. Because it's a whole... I mean, I saw all 4 of my children born, but it was different. I remember I did not request this, but for some reason when Jonah was born, the doctor, and I know this is politically incorrect, I'm not mocking his accent, real sweet Indian guy, but he's like, I was caught up in the moment, and he says, come cut the cord, Daddy. And I'm like, oh, I don't cut things. Like, but everybody in the room's looking at me like, cut the cord, you big sissy. And I'm like, okay. So I'm over there. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Because I don't want to mess it up, hurt something. Yeah. So I'm like, I cut it and did not feel like what I was expecting. And, it was just for a moment, because I know it's not about me. Debbie's the one having the baby, but just, you cut it and, like stuff goes all over your shirt. You're like, may I be excused for just a moment? Because I'm real close to fainting, and I don't want to make this about me, so I'm going to go out in the hallway and pass out. As a matter of fact, I'm going right now, even as I talk. But I didn't tell Jared that last night because I still don't know why that guy asked me to do that. It wasn't like I'm like, I'm paying you to cut the freaking cord. Like, don't ask me. Well, the other three, they never asked for that. For some reason with Jonah, that was a thing. I'm like, okay. And I mean, I'm glad I had that experience, I guess. But like if I mean, Ken's not pregnant, so I don't, it's a non-issue. But if I were ever asked, next time you go, would you like to kind of be like, no, I'll pass. Let's thank you. I did that once before, but that's okay. You do it. You got the stuff for that. So, but that's what happens to us emotionally when sometimes things happen. You're like, I have no preparation for this. I have no, and sometimes that serves you. Sometimes if you don't have preconceived ideas, you actually do better. Because sometimes people prepare you for stuff that you don't really need to be prepared for. Like I remember when I was in school, this used to happen a lot. You would talk to some of your older friends when it was a new school year, and there was always somebody who would say, oh, you better hope you don't get Miss Norton. She's really mean. Like they'd get you all psyched up for something. And I would notice so many times I would go into that class and I'm like, she's not like that at all. I think that was your experience. I like this class. So sometimes too much preparation is negative, but it can also be disorienting. All right, let me finish this thought up. Y'all still with me? Where'd my notes go? Do apps just disappear on your phone? It's the weirdest thing. Why do they do that? So very quickly, here's ways to shift your focus. Number one, change the question. Jesus says, just take up your bed and walk. In other words, Jesus didn't even engage. He didn't say, there's no angel. That's not even a thing. He just said, just take up your bed and walk. He introduced new energy. Change the question. Try asking what you can learn or what the situation is forcing you to face rather than asking why it targets you. I mean, for the most part, saying why me is it's never going to get you anywhere. Yeah. It feels good. I don't understand why this is happening to me. It's just all you're doing is spinning your wheels. At some point, I'm not saying deny it. I'm saying just change the way you're looking at it. Like, okay, this is the next thing that I've got to deal with, and I've dealt with other stuff before, and I got through those. I killed a bear and a lion. I can kill this giant. Secondly is acknowledge the pain. Let yourself feel hurt or tired without judging yourself for having a hard time. I think this is really important. I think you can say, I'm going to get through this thing, but it still, pardon my French, it still sucks. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not survivable. It is. If there's any way, let this cup pass from me. But sometimes, for the joy that's set before you, you have to endure the cross. You hear me? And then finally, talk to someone, this is what I want to bring up today specifically. Sharing your burden with a friend, family member, or professional can help ease the weight you are carrying. Now, let me frame this away so I can. Let me give you a couple of examples. I'm going to speak kind of vaguely, but at least those of you here in this room will know what I'm talking about. So sometimes when we finish this part, Charles, he turns off the camera, and then sometimes I'll sit down here and we'll discuss a little bit. What did you get out of it? We'll talk for a few minutes. And so a few weeks ago, and I started it, I said something about the political landscape, and because y'all are basically on the same page with me, many of you chimed in, and we were talking about, some of our concerns about things that are happening in the country, and feeling like democracy is possibly being endangered. And there's nothing that I said that needed to be taken back. It was all true. And everything that y'all said was all true. after a while, Avery said, well, I just still believe that democracy is going to survive, and we're going to get through this turbulence, whatever. Now, let me tell you why I could receive that, because that's an example of energy being changed. In fact, let me give you another example. Last week, camera goes off, I tell you about a specific situation I'm processing through. Sonia chimes in with relatable situation. What I said was true, what you said was true. A couple of other people said, these are my experiences. Nothing bad. Don't read into anything I'm saying. We're just talking about real things that people go through. And Roz and Freddie are they're at home today, but Roz wouldn't mind me saying this because she knows it's true. She said, well, I'm just believing, like she changed the energy of what we were saying. And I'm using these two examples. When Avery changed the energy and Rosalind changed the energy, this is something, I was thinking about this. I said, why is it sometimes somebody can give you a different viewpoint and it irritates you because it feels combative? But if it comes from somebody that you know's on the page with you, everything I was saying about politics the other day, Avery agrees with. There wasn't any, like she wasn't arguing with me. She was introducing different energy. Because I remember when you said it, I thought, you know what? You're right. That's right. And let's leave. Usually when the energies change, I say, nobody else say anything. Let's go out on that. Yeah. Okay? Y'all understand? I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, including myself. I don't throw myself under the bus. I'm just saying I can't receive that from everybody. Right. I could receive that from Rosalind because, quite frankly, and Roz, you'll know what I mean by this, Rosalind's had some of the very same challenges of what you and I were talking about. So, and she's on the page. So she's not arguing. This is what, because I've become very aware of this. Like if somebody, like if you're going through something legit that's difficult, and somebody who's not really in your flow says something like, oh, it's not that bad, or there's other people going through much worse things, or you ought to count your blessings. Haven't you noticed that doesn't make you feel any better? You're just like, womp, womp. Yeah, you want to go, thank you, I understand what you're saying, but shut up. Do you understand? Because what they're doing is diminishing a very real thing that you're experiencing. Now, if it's somebody who is coming from a place of empathy and agreement, that's a totally different thing. When they say, yeah, but let's believe this, because Avery wasn't lecturing me. No. She was saying, let's believe this. And I thought, you know what? You're exactly right. That's exactly right. I don't want to not be able to say what I want to say, but I also want to say, like, yeah, maybe it's enough of that. Now let's introduce a different energy. The man had been sick for 38 years. He wasn't making that up. Whether there was an angel or not, that was a real thing. That was his belief system. You know, he wasn't a bad person. He just was stuck in the wrong energy, in the familiar spirit. You understand what I'm saying? Again, not a demon. But I tell you this, I think there is such a thing as a deliverance ministry. Yes. And it's not, come out of him in Jesus' name. It's not that. It's helping someone interrupt, if you're coming from a place of love and understanding and empathy, helping them work through it and interrupt an old familiar way of thinking and introducing a new thought. And let me say this to you. Not everybody in your life is qualified to introduce a new thought to you. That's why if it's somebody who, what they're saying may be true. What they're saying may be true. Like if sometimes I'm going through something and I'll preface it with, I know this is a first world problem, but. Like today, I can always tell when Ken's got something he don't want to tell me because he went out and blew off the driveway today, the new driveway, and he said, I got to tell you something. I'm like, you've got this ain't going to be good look. And he said, there's a couple of cracks in the driveways. I think it could be fixed. And I said, okay, I'll contact the guy this week. But I needed to know it. No, that's not great news. But okay. And I've talked to their insurance company this week about one of y'all's trucks running in the back of my car, and she's like, we're working on it. And I'm okay. Sometimes I'll preface something with, I know this is a first world problem. But yeah, I didn't want to hear that my new driveway already got cracks in it. You understand? So if you say, there's people starving in parts of it, fine, that has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Don't diminish what I'm going through. I'm not trying to be a drama queen. I'm saying, yeah, I'm sure they can fix it, but yeah, allow me just to say, this stinks.
Allow me to feel what I feel.
Now, if somebody says, I'm sure they can fix it, okay, fine, then you're helping me. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of stuff, you're like, oh my God, now what? I mean, for the most part, I've been in major renovation mode for 6 months. And for the most part, everything's gone swimmingly well. The guy that did did my side, he needs to fix a couple of the sprinkler heads that he broke. And I don't know how many more times to text him. And there's only so many times you could say, I really need this fixed. And he says, I'm on it, because he's got other people. I get it. But when this one says, it'd be good if he could come today when I'm off, I'm like, I can't text him again. Okay? I understand what you're saying. But because when you're in the middle of it, it's easy to go, oh my God, now what? Just do the thing I paid you for. And all of it's been great, but when you've got contractors and stuff, there's stuff you have to deal with. And yes, it's first world problems. I get it.
Well, look at me.
But you understand what I'm saying? Now, if it's somebody who's on the page with you, who's been through it before, who can say, oh, we had that same thing, and they came out and they made it right. Okay, fine, that's good. But don't be dismissive of it and say, you need to count your blessings. Like, no, you need to back up off me is what you need to do, because you don't know me like that, and you don't know how grateful I already am. Allow me the freedom to say, this is a real thing I'm going through, and no, I don't want to snare myself with the words of my mouth, but you may not be a significant enough player in my life to have the right to say that to me. Like, it's like when, this happens rarely now, but we were talking about this last night with Jared about how people who are in the construction business and they post about it, there's a whole subculture of people who want to argue about, you didn't do that right, you didn't pour that right, you didn't do whatever. But it's never anybody that you know.
Right.
Like I remember, I was telling Jamie, my daughter-in-law, had never heard the story about the Deep Creek thing. And we were talking about it because she's a park ranger. And I was telling her what the park ranger had told me when I lost my stuff. The park ranger said, you're never going to find your stuff. Anyway, so I said, this is a long story, and I know you're very pregnant. I'm going to make this super short, which I did. But what was my point? Where was I going with it? Oh, so most everybody in my world recognized that was like a bona fide miracle. Even last night, how many times have you heard me tell that story? I look over and Ken's got tears coming, and I'm like, this still makes you emotional? He said, yes, I just remember how amazing it was that day. So it was a bona fide miracle, no doubt about it. Well, I had posted about it, and some guy, I don't even know, because I guess anybody on Facebook, if you're on a certain setting, they can comment on your page. He writes me this big rebuke about, with all that God's got to deal with in the world, with taking care of suffering people, why would you think God cares about your wallet and like this big rebuke? And I ended up just blocking him, but initially I said, thank you, person who I've never met. But I actually didn't say God did it. I said I called my stuff back and got it back. And that has nothing to do with the suffering that's in the world. Like, what the heck? Why wouldn't you just read that story and go, oh, that's cool if that guy thinks it was a miracle? I don't even know who you are. Like, really, you'd probably need a hobby or something. Like, you've got to, Here's a thought. You can actually, I know some people can't believe this. You could actually go online and scroll through your feed, and you don't have to react to everything that you read. I know. Some people can't believe it. I read all the time. People post things, and I'm like, that's not true. I disagree with that, whatever. Like, why? I don't even know this person. And even if it's somebody I know, I'm less likely to. And if I do have I would say if, but I don't even think I've ever done this. If I did have a rebuke, I would privately message them and say, look, I have a problem with this thing. But go on somebody's page, you don't even know them, and you're going to do this big rebuke, like, oh, no, you're about to be so blocked, baby. My block game is strong. And it doesn't mean I'm not open to dialoguing with people that I know. It was recently brought to my attention, nobody would rebuke you because you say you just block people. I said, yeah, that's people online. That's over theology. That's not over people in my life. If BJ came to me and said, we need to talk about something, I wouldn't be like, block! I'd be like, that would be insane. Why? Because we have a relationship. Right? I mean, like, really? You can't make that distinction? Just because I block anonymous people online, and I don't even do that much anymore because I don't have to. But that doesn't mean you can't talk to me about stuff. People talk to me about stuff all the time. I'm constantly changing the energy on things. You know, like, yeah, maybe I should rethink this or whatever. And I think that's what keeps the river flowing. Right. So when I talk about the healing word, yes, it does come from other people. You also have to know how to be able to hear new energy, because sometimes you just need people in your life to sit with you in the situation and not even necessarily make you feel better about it. Sometimes you just need to be heard and not judged. And then there's other times when I love that so many times, especially in Proverbs, it says a word in season. I love, there's hardly any fruit that I don't like. I love fruit, but I want it in season. I don't want it when it's not ripe. I don't want it when So there's some things that, yeah, you could say it to that person, but not right now.
Because some fruit out of season is poison.
Exactly. But even, like if somebody's just lost a loved one, just saying they're in a better place, that's not really helpful. Paul said, weep with those that weep. Just go to the funeral and bring a casserole. Yeah. Don't lecture somebody about they wouldn't want you to cry. Like, you don't know what they would want. I'm amazed at how many know-it-alls there are in the world who offer unsolicited advice. When I'm in somebody else's reality, I think this is how they're dealing with it. I would even, like if I go preach in a church that I know maybe they're not totally on the same page with me, I'll even say, like, anything I say, you've heard me say it 100 times. Anything that I say that's contrary to what you've heard from the house, consider me wrong and they're right. I didn't come in here to, I'm their guest. I didn't come in here to rebuke everybody. There's a place for rebuke, but let me tell you something about the rebukers. A little bit of that goes a long way. Yeah. There's only so much rebuke you can dish out to where you need to start looking at the splinter that's in your own eye. Did I just say that? Yes, I did. So I'm going to put a comma right there, and then next week I'm going to get more into the internal monologue, because that's the most important thing. What do you say to yourself? And are you stuck in familiar spirits that are holding you in bondage? If that's the case, yes, you need deliverance. Your head's not going to turn around 180 degrees. You're not going to vomit. You're not going to go into convulsions, but you're going to change. And sometimes a thought just needs to be interrupted and redirected. And that's where we're going next week. Y'all going to get anything out of this today? Yes. All right. Charles, if you will run the outro, please, and then I'll come back for a blessing.
Contributing to Metron is quick and easy. You can give anytime using any smartphone. Text the amount you would like to donate to 404-620-5044. You will then receive a notification that you successfully completed your donation. You may also visit bishonthennow.com and click the support tab to give there as well. When you contribute to Metron, you're also donating to the charity or organization of the month. Thank you for your investment into Metron.
Thank you for logging on today. As far as I know, I'll be on tomorrow for 11:11 a.m. Here from the studio on my Facebook page. I speak clarity to you and understanding and the mind of Christ. And that if something I've said today has been a catalyst for you to start thinking a new way, I say that you are open to the moving of the Spirit. In Him you live and in Him you move. And I decree over all of us, everyone who's connected with this Metron in any possible way, that we're all moving forward and that we're not stuck and that we are transformed by the renewing of our minds. And we put on the new mind which is created after Christ, the Christ in the now. Call it done in your name. Amen. All right. Peace. See you next time. All right.